again, Pallavi, for taking out the time and joining us today on Veritech. So, before we get into the nitty gritty of the topic, let's have a quick introduction about yourself for our audience.
Absolutely. I am thrilled to be here and thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. Nice meeting you too. About me, I'm a technologist by craft, but by heart, I'm a teacher and a guide. Professionally, I am the head of software engineering at Flexential. Flexential is a infrastructure and cloud company. We have large connected data center facilities across the United States and some parts of Europe. So here, what I am responsible is with my talented engineers and architects, I um, build the strategy and execute on creating the user experience in support of all of Flexential's customer lifecycle. So yeah, software development, software engineering with a group of talented engineers for infrastructure and cloud company.
Right. So, from what I understood, it's more of a strategizing role that you have right now.
Mhm. Strategy for what's needed now, what's needed in the future, and also the implementation and ensuring that the strategy comes to fruition confidently and reliably.
Great. That's always, I think that's like a big umbrella term for all those things that you've got to do, It's always I think a very difficult job coming up with a, strategy, especially when the new year starts. So with that, what's something that you're currently working on that's got you excited, but only a few people know about it? And if you'd like to share it with us today.
Yeah, lots of good stuff, lots of fun stuff. We have, large cloud, and we provide at Flexential the ability for companies to do hybrid cloud strategies and implement them. And we can talk about hybrid cloud strategies if you would like, but what that also involves then is to ensure that the security is optimal. Why we use hybrid cloud is because we have distributed architectures. The engineering, software engineering now with the trends that are happening for the future are very distributed. So we need to make sure that there is fault tolerance and the business continuity is always up. So yes, we have a big security department and we have our operations department, but as software engineering head of department, I need to make sure that what security and operations need is how we build things, optimally. So, even though it's not in my portfolio directly today, I still would, hope to direct that at some point. So I learned about it on the side, and that excites me a lot. And that's just professionally, but personally, if I think about it, I am a, as I said, technologist at heart. So I
Yeah.
do a lot of tinkering on my own. So learning new what's happening right now in the industry. And I have a brand and portfolio website that I created, handcrafted myself. It's pallavihanson.com. And I'm also a hobbyist. So I'm creating a hobby blog and tinkering with React Native, Python and Django and those kinds of things, not professionally related, but it's just my project on the side. So I
So
love doing
your so your blog is going to be focused on that, all the languages.
No, not for my job. It's just for my
Right, yeah.
personal interest. Yeah. For my
Right.
job, I am working on my, what nobody really knows. You asked me if people know about it.
Mhm.
As part of my actual deliverables. This is not necessary, but it is a great support for my peer organizations if my team and my people are fully aware of security at design and they can, architect really well for fault tolerance. So that's
Right.
my focus today.
Okay. So we're here to talk about, the state of the technical architecture in 2021, which I know is a big and broad topic. So, I mean, let's just start with the basic thing first. You are supposed to serve the customer at the end of the day. So, do you believe that being customer centric and being agile are one and the same thing now in today's world?
That's a good question. Being customer centric is extremely essential. Being agile is also very essential, but I wouldn't call them the same exact things, because you could be very agile and work on something that may or may not keep you on the right track if you don't have the right uh, oversight and the right strategic leadership. Um, there could be things here you're very, very fast and very responsive, and could be the agility could be high, but it may or may not serve the purpose of being customer centric. But if you do want to be customer centric, you have to be agile.
Right.
So user-based design or experience-based strategy, user experience-based strategy definitely needs agile. So we have the ability now with our cloud infrastructures and our distributed architectures to be able to do things like A/B testing, things like, look at there are analytics and things like look at those analytics and see where the customer favors, and be agile to then adapt to that quickly. So I would say it is essential to be agile to be customer centric, but they're not the same.
Right. And what about the future of the cloud? What are your thoughts on that? And there's also, talk about, it lying in the distributed cloud. That's the next thing. So what are your thoughts on that?
It's very bright. The future for cloud absolutely is bright. Flexential is a cloud company and very focused towards um, doing hybrid cloud for their customers. So what that also means is, you could have your workloads in a very different fashion. You could have on-premise your own cloud, or you could have a virtual private cloud with a cloud company. That could run your infrastructure load. So your production environments could run on a virtual private cloud, but your platforms for development and testing and everything could run, on a public cloud like AWS or Azure. You could also run something that is very specialized, like data warehousing, or deep science, or data science or analytics on a cloud that actually has specialty. It keeps you out of vendor lock-in. It gives you cost effectiveness. You can utilize this benefit, utilize this structure of hybrid cloud to your benefit really well. The trend in technology is very geared towards being able to do that. So yeah, I mean, the elasticity, you cannot, the elasticity is so good. I mean, you're not bound to capital expense. You can do, you can do on demand your resource and pools utilization, and there is a huge amount of cost benefit to that. Software as a service is large in the industry, and that's a whole different like topic for a full podcast. But
Yeah.
yeah, you need the cloud. The future of cloud is brilliant.
And how do you ensure seamless migration to the cloud? And is there something that, you find that, okay, this would be like pose a bit of a challenge, or anything that you see, forthcoming that you feel like this might be a challenge to the future of the cloud as well?
Well, migrations happen for primarily two reasons. One is when a customer actually um, buys into or adopts a new system. It could be a cloud system or it could be an on-premise system, but nowadays it's more SaaS systems that unless the company and its um, uh, intellectual property is very sensitive, then it could be an on-premise private cloud kind of a scenario. But you're adopting a new product or a system, a service altogether, then there is that type of migration where you need to move all of your information and data into the new system. It's like, you take an analogy of moving your house. How problematic could it be if you had to do it yourself, right? Moving house, packing, moving But if you could give a white glove service and you could provide that as a benefit in addition to your licensing and your installation, how you could do that is by automating all of the data conversions and data migrations and the ETLs, and making it a system instead of doing it per customer in a making it more generic than doing it custom for each customer. So that can avoid a lot of hassle for the customer if you can provide something that is a very well-established system that you create using the wonderful languages and technologies for ETL that we have today. The second type of migration would be for customers that are already on a system, but we decide to underlying change something. Either it's an API change, or it's a platform change, or it's a vendor change that we have used to build the system as a provider. In that situation, the customer's daily activities, the day-to-day business, it should be seamless for them. They should not have any impacts or any changes. I mean, early and often communication about how things are happening, what's going on, giving them means of being able to try out the new features and functionalities. If there is no change to the new features and functionalities, purely an underlying architectural platform change, the customer shouldn't even know. So there's their legal contracts, their billing, their invoices, none of that should change. And if they do need to update something, then again, as I mentioned, it shouldn't be a burden for them. It should be something that we as a provider give to the customers in the form of automation, in the form of bulk processing, in the any form that they need. And you can work with them on getting their systems updated and provided in an automated fashion to them.
So you talked about two types of migration. So how do you actually determine which one to go with?
It depends on the customer's, where in the life cycle the customer is. If they're buying a new system, then you have to do the ETL. So there is a collaboration with the customer, that is essential because you have to bring in the data.
Okay.
But if it is a platform upgrade underneath and it requires some data change to the customer, then communication is required, but we should be able to do it ourselves. Depends on the situation under which
Okay. Makes
the
sense.
update is happening.
Right. So let's talk about languages for a bit. So Python versus Java, the age-old debate. So which one would you prefer and why?
Well, I have worked with both, and both are dear to me. My career started with Java, a lot of work there. Java, I would say, is extremely strong. They're neck and neck. I mean, it's not really one versus the other, but the proper applicability of the strengths of each language against the problem and challenge that we are solving. Java is more of an enterprise architecture kind of, it has a big backing, a very standard JDK against which, the language has been developed. It's a strongly typed language and requires a lot of verbose coding structure. So yeah, I mean, people that love Java and have worked with it and worked with frameworks like Spring enjoy doing that. But Python is, something that is less verbose. It's more fluent. It's English-like. It has a ton of libraries that it's not just based on JDK. It's a high-level library, so it's not just based on one standard. So there's a lot of libraries available that have been developed by a lot of different people or teams or organizations that have been uploaded and ready to use. They do complex processing like machine learning and data visualization and a lot of things. I mean, not just that, but a rapid application development for the web is also possible using Python on a quick basis. So, people that are more interested in the plug and play part, more interested in the analytics part, gravitate towards Python. So what you could have is Java to construct the underlying solid enterprise application, but Python on top of that to then bring it up into the web and provide a more value add in terms of data analytics, data visualization, more interpretation and adaptation of the customer's behavior, based on the analytics that it can perform for.
So essentially, both of them can complement one another.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So, Pallavi, what are some of the trends that you see or that you predict will happen when it comes to data governance? I know 2020 had a lot of, new insights about how data is managed, new privacy laws. So, how do you feel that going into 2021, what will we see more of?
Yeah, more of that. So it's been so interesting in terms of location. So we have all learned and adapted to not just be confined or in our thinking to be in an office environment. So it's opened up. It wasn't closed in before, but it's opened up way more during 2020 period where the remoteness and the connection. So connection while being remote is huge right now.
Yeah.
It's extremely prevalent. So when that happens, then unstructured data becomes the primary aspect to govern. So unstructured data would be things like we put in documents, Word documents or Excel documents, or images, videos. All of that information needs to move around. And that is more of a governance concern. Where structured data is concerned, where that is generated by applications, um, we have much more governance and security because you do security at design for establishing, building those applications. So there is a lot of behavioral aspect where different departments have, when everything is not automated, there is a tendency to export information from databases and process it manually. So that there has to be governance with that aspect, instead of manual processing, figure out ways of automating that process and, putting it behind an API and an application. So that would help with governance of, data that typically was because of the safety of being co-located and
Right.
being within the protected networks of the organization. It was more of a safety, more of a safe approach there. But now we have to make it better. Um, for the unstructured data, again, it's always going to be what kind of governance do you have? What kind of policies have you established?
Yeah.
Do you do your audits on a regular basis, which you have to? I mean, there's no other way. But then what kind of procedures you have for compliance? So, a hard relationship and partnership with the governance, risk, and compliance department is, that's the way to the future for
And
data
with all
governance.
the change that we've seen so far, what's one thing that you've, seen recently in your industry that you're surprised by?
Oh, it has become so rapid. I mean, the application development
Yeah.
now is fantastic. I mean, you put it to use. You don't sit on your features for too long. You develop it really fast. And a lot of libraries are available as SaaS. In the SaaS format, there's a lot of already established libraries to do core functions are available. So you can literally plug and play and build your application really fast. So you don't have to, you don't have to be a tool, you don't have to build all of those from scratch. You can fully focus on the business functionality and the value that you're trying to provide to an end user or an end customer. So that go-to-market speed has been phenomenal over this time, and is going to continue to be phenomenal in the future.
So with that, so what's one advice that you would give to a college student entering the real world?
Oh,
especially
I
when
wish I
it comes
was.
to the tech.
I
tech
wish I could. I'm so jealous of the kids that are out of college and just about to enter the tech, professional world.
You
I mean,
wish you could go
it's
back
all
in time.
open for you. Yeah, exactly. We wish we could go back in time. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, the world is open. I mean, take your time, have fun, but when you start, look at things, and if anything is too big, it looks too big and too overwhelming, it's only because you are not breaking it down into a smaller manageable chunk. Find information, break it down, and learn from everybody that's around you that has done it before. Be a sponge. Yeah, go for
Be a
it.
sponge. I like that. Just absorb everything.
Keep learning. Yeah, be a
Yeah,
sponge.
that's good. So, and lastly, what advice would you give to your 20-year-old self now?
Well, look at what really interests you. I'll tell
Mhm,
myself that. Look at where your passion is. What
mhm,
is the real core of you, and what interests you? Again, same thing in terms of, if you feel overwhelmed. If I feel overwhelmed, which I would have, I remember that, things just seemed unreachable, is only because there were unknowns. And we assume when there are unknowns about the complexity being way more than it actually is.
mhm,
In that situation, go fact finding. Do not assume, go fact finding. Once you understand
mhm.
and your assumptions are either confirmed or debunked, then you actually know what the facts are, and then it's not overwhelming anymore, and you can be confident and tread the path. I will always tell myself that, and I have, as a 20-year-old and today too. I mean, unknowns are always there in front of us.
Yeah.
So I would also say that focus on yourself, but keep an eye to outwards. Look at where the world is going, because the world is rapidly evolving. So
It is. It is. You're so right about that. So, with that, Pallavi, we've come to the end of our podcast. Thanks once again for joining us.
I'm thrilled, and thank you for having me. This was fun.